couple of people who actually appear in the films and are seeing themselves as children vividly in colour 80 years later.
That's me. That one. That's my brother Dick.
Dick.
He was my favourite of the lot.
First stop on my journey is in Gloucestershire. Claude stopped here in Cirencester at the Bathurst estate to film one of his most picturesque subjects, agriculture. The farming methods in Claude's film have completely disappeared. Where there are 4 men with teams of working animals, now there will be 1 man and a combine harvester. However, the Bathurst family still owns the estate which Claude filmed on. I met Lord Apsley, the current heir, to see if he could help. What I've got here is some very interesting archive of the estate in the mid-1920s, and it shows a team, or 2 teams actually, of oxen at work.
I might certainly be able to help you out with the location, but as far as the animals go, I doubt that I'll be able to help you out with that. I do know somebody who may well be able to help out with you. He is the son of the man that did drive the oxen.
Oh, excellent.
Shall we go on down and see if he's...
Absolutely.
Right,
Thank you
just
very
down
much.
this street. It's
a
very interesting street, this one, anyway.
Beautiful street.
Oh, good evening. Good evening. Can I help you?
Well, this chapter...
Oh, Lord Apsley. Hello, good afternoon,
Ralph,
Lord
good
Apsley.
to see you.
I'm Dan, how do you do?
Cruickshank.
I've come to show you something.
Oh, good. Do you want to come in?
Yes, please.
Come on in.
in.
Do you want to come in, my lord?
Thank you, Ralph.
Come on in. You go.
I've got this film. I'd like to show it to you, sort of understand what's going on. It's rather remarkable, actually. It seems to help me identify the scene that's about to unfold. Now, what about this? A team of oxen in the mid-20s.
Yes.
Chap coming in here.
Yeah, that looks like my dad, actually.
Does it? I'll stop it again. So that could be your father?
Yeah, because he wouldn't be about that age, you see. That looks like Fred Kent. And God knows who that is up
Lost
there.
it. So what earth does it feel like suddenly seeing your father as a young man moving in colour?
Yeah.
What does it feel like to see that suddenly?
Well, it's astounding, isn't it? Because so he wouldn't be very old, would he?
Look. My God, I think you're right.
Well,
Something in it there. So your father worked the team of oxen, did he?
God, just he
Wow.
started on the estate when he was 12 years old.
Good heavens.
And the farm manager said, would you like to work with animals? And my dad said, yes, I would. He said, well, just not go back to school. I'll put it right with authorities. So after 12 years, he started on the estate.
Okay, but
these blokes, all these chaps, they ain't very big, but they could live a sack of 2.5 on the way to corn on their shoulders.
Right. So can I
But
ask
we
you,
couldn't do it a day.
did you like oxen?
Oh, yeah, of course I like all animals, but I didn't want to work with them. That's Prince with a big orange look. And that's Darling there. My dad used to lift me on his back and give me a ride.
I can see that Claude rather liked oxen because he shoots an awful lot of them. I mean, lots of different views.
I can't pick up where that field is on this particular film.
Now, here we go. This is like...
Now, that's more like it. And I reckon that is what is now the middle polo field. It was made a polo field when Lady Apsley formed Cirencester Park Polo Club again.
Do you reckon that's a polo field, as is now?
Well,
I'm not absolutely certain, but Ralph was there during that time.
But how does it compare with 80 years ago?
It's changed enormously.
Yes.
And I think that when one looks at it, the estate, there were so many people dependent upon the estate for a living. There were many people, Ralph, who was born on the estate, his father worked on the estate for 49 years, and it was an entire life. And many of the cottages on the estate were lived in by people actually working on the ground, whereas that is no longer the case. The in-hand farm has got bigger and fewer people working it.
While Britain looked like a prosperous rural country, agriculture had actually been in decline since the middle of the 19th century. Since the 1920s, the number of farmers in Britain has fallen by a further 2/3. Claude was very keen on depicting Britain as a rural idyll. This shot is clearly set up. No one in their right mind will stand so close to each other using a sickle and scythe to trim a hedge. Claude's journey on the open road offered lots of opportunities to show off his all-new colour process.
There's a rainbow round my shoulder and a sky of blue above. Oh, the sun shines bright, the world's all right 'cause
There have been other films in colour before this, but Claude was the first system that, in theory, would be available to all cinemas worldwide.
I'll be warm 'cause I'm in love. Hallelujah.
The world at this time was silent and in black and white.
That my little
The attempt to perfect moving pictures in colour was an obsession that was to dominate the Frise Greene family. Claude's father, William Frise Greene, was a pioneering filmmaker who had dedicated his life and all of his family money to developing colour film. Seen here with Claude, his father's biocolour system was beaten to it by a rival, Kinemacolour. A legal battle ensued, which Kinemacolour lost, but William's experiments with colour were halted by the First World War. Claude's own experiences of fighting on the front line of the Battle of the Somme would have a deep and long-lasting effect. When his father died in 1921, he was on the job of perfecting the new colour system. The open road films are a highly romantic, patriotic vision of Britain. They are Claude's portrait of a country still coming to terms with the recent trauma of war. Here's Claude himself demonstrating his red-green colour process, and in particular, the fringing problems associated with movement. In front of me is Claude's own camera. It's the camera on which he filmed the open road. Pretty well a standard camera for the period, but there's a major adaptation for Claude. This circular area here was to contain a disc, rather like this. The disc had two filters, a red one and a yellowy green one. As it spins, the film absorbs the red light and the blue-green light. The black and white positive print was then dyed red and blue-green on alternate frames, and when projected at fast speed, created the illusion of colour.
and it fits me like a glove.
The version of the open road we are looking at was carefully preserved, restored and printed from Claude's original negatives by the British Film Institute.
That my little sugar baby.
Inadvertently, Claude's films are a documentary of Britain in the mid-1920s in glorious colour, some 15 years before the famous Technicolor films Gone with the Wind and The Wizard of Oz. We pick up Claude's journey in Raglan, across the border in Wales. Everywhere he went, Claude charmed people into appearing in his films, like this couple visiting the ancient castle. Then, having a picnic right by the side of an A road was much safer than it would be today, and it was also quite a pleasant thing to do. Claude artfully arranged this colourful scene with one of the women dressed almost entirely in red, eating tomatoes with oranges for pudding. These women, who were sitting by their cars enjoying their lunch, had a very newfound sense of freedom. Women learned to drive during the First World War. Men were away fighting. The war was a terrible but strangely liberating time for women because they got the opportunity to do all manner of new things. They gained a new sense of independence. And of course, in 1918, women got the vote. The only women aged 30 or above. For women, it was a truly exciting time to be alive. The end of Edwardian strictures brought the liberation of the 1920s. More women were working in service and clerical jobs. Fashion went through huge changes as well, with short bobbed hair, cloche hats, looser dresses, and no corsets. Claude had a real eye for the ladies. There are noticeably more women than men in his films. Dressed in new brightly coloured fabrics, they showed off the colour process beautifully.
He's got eyes of blue,
On to Tintern Abbey for a traditional touric view. Although he clearly had a problem with his image, the colour flickered. In Chepstow, we find two of Claude's favourite subjects, children and animals. This little boy is sitting on a broken bicycle frame, sharing his jam sandwich with a friend. The range and choice of subjects Claude filmed varies greatly in the open road. Here in Cardiff, he seemed to shoot as much going on as he could. He even made the effort to get on the top deck of a tram to film the high street. Claude's captions were used to guide his audience on his tour. They ranged from the purely descriptive to the not very funny to the mildly offensive. The next films of Cardiff are a seemingly random collection. Some boys in the distance playing football in a park, a little boy in a red shirt, a sailor with a pram, and then what looks like two professional footballers, but not the match itself. I've come to the Cardiff City football ground, Ninian Park, to talk to their club historian, Richard Shepherd. We have this title saying, "One afternoon at a football match, meet a gentleman from Birmingham. He is a captain and his name is Tremling." Do you know him? Do you know him?
Well, I know who Tremling was, and he wasn't the captain of Birmingham. He was the goalkeeper, but the captain is shown, and the captain, in fact, is Frank Womack.
So, okay, so this is Womack.
This is Womack.
So it shows the wrong chap here.
Yeah,
so this
so
is Womack.
perhaps Claude wasn't a football expert.
Or didn't take notes. Another famous captain.
Yeah, this is the captain of Cardiff, Fred Keener. He's got him down as Frank Keener. Was probably the best-known Welsh international of the time, even though Claude called him Frank Keener.
Bad luck, Claude. You can't get everything right.
We'll excuse him that.
So what date do you think this is from the internal evidence, so to speak?
Well, having looked at most of the film, I can pretty well say it's February 1926.
No, okay. Now, why? How so precise?
Because I looked up the reports of Cardiff-Birmingham matches in that period, and Cardiff did play Birmingham in February 1926, and from other pieces of information on the film,
yes,
that's when I think it was.
And this caption says, "One little chap in Cardiff is starting very early."
I'm 99.9% certain that is Tommy Ferguson, and he was the son of the Cardiff City centre forward Hughie Ferguson, who came to Cardiff City from Motherwell in November 1925 for a then large £5,000, and Hughie Ferguson went on to score Cardiff's winning goal in the FA Cup final in 1927.
Good heavens, so Tommy Ferguson, the little chap here, looks out, I don't know what, two or so?
Two and a half. He's still very much alive.
Alive? What's it like to see yourself suddenly in colour as a child?
It's quite strange, isn't it?
Look at that, you've sort of been frowning a bit there.
Frowning, which my mother often told about this frown. I need to get rid of that frown. Smile more.
Of course, one's trying to work out what's going on, and I imagine that at this point, Claude was telling you what to do. He must have been saying, move left, move right, because you seem to be sort of responding to some instruction. You look a bit perplexed, actually.
Exactly, that's just what I was trying to say.
What do you feel? Do you feel he's a stranger to you now, or do you somehow...
Yeah, obviously he's got to be a stranger, but probably some of the mannerisms, when you see him moving, I still have these mannerisms and still move that same way, and the sort of eyebrows down.
Yes, slightly puzzled.
I'm quite sure the park that where this film was made, we stayed only 50, 100 yards from it,
right.
And I would be in that park every day with a ball.
And you're talking about two years old, something like that there?
I would be 2 at that time, yes. This is most of the team. I don't know exactly where they were going in this car or whatever, but they're in the car, and I'm the one who's obviously not in the team.
There you are, yes.
That's my dad there.
That's your father, yeah.
Obviously, you know, being a footballer and having a young lad in the family, he would want me to get a kick at a ball.
Absolutely. And here you are kicking it around. And you, I see you, and it's only 2 years old, so it's hard to have a memory stretching back. But if you dig really deep into your memory, you can't picture this kind of guy with a big tripod doing this.
Well, you're talking about 79 years, so...
Very exciting for me also, by the way, because you're the first person I've met in the flesh who's in Claude's film. So it's amazing, you know, it's sort of just this incredible link. I've been studying this archive for months and months, and now to meet somebody who actually is in it is incredibly interesting. Strange, it all sort of makes it now seem so recent. It's, you know, it's now sometimes a distant world, isn't it? A disappeared, lost world of 1920s. But now with you here, it all seems like yesterday.
It's a long time.
It's Rag Week in Cardiff, and the colour and hijinks of the university students proved very tempting for Claude, including single-sex dancing, geisha girls, and his usual penchant for redheads. Rag Week is a week-long series of events organised to raise money for charity. The idea seemed to have originated around 1900 in a rather peculiar way, with students getting hold of old rags and writing poems on the rags and selling the rags to make money. Most bizarre. Certainly, though, judged by Claude's film, by the mid-1920s, the main event of a Rag Week was for the students to dress up in outlandish, bizarre and rather daring costumes. The students gathered on the lawn in front of the main university building. Claude featured the girl wearing a red and green scarf, of course. The pirate or gypsy look seems to be popular, especially with what looks like boot polish on their faces. We Moderns, perhaps a nod to the title of a popular American film from 1925, a morality tale set in London about a flapper who falls for a married man. The only male student Claude selected to film is wearing makeup, earrings, and a mini boater. Claude's next stop is Cardiff Castle, where he spotted a little girl in one of his favourite colours and some peacocks displaying one of his other favourites. The aristocrat who owned Cardiff Castle was the Marquis of Bute. When Claude came calling, the fourth Marquis was not in residence. Fears of industrial unrest had caused many of the most wealthy to flee to Europe at this time. So his staff had been left to look after the castle. Perhaps this little girl is one of their children. Unfortunately, the household records of this time have been lost, so we may never know who she is. Back in the 18th century, Lord Mountstuart, who became the first Marquis of Bute, had acquired several estates, and the family had a huge influence over South Wales and the city of Cardiff. When the coal industry took off, the family built the Glamorgan Canal from Cardiff to Merthyr. This shot shows a barge laden with fuel briquettes on its way to the Bute docks. The second Marquis had built the docks in the early 1800s, and by the time Claude filmed, it had become the biggest and most prosperous port in the world. In the foreground of this shot, you can see coal, which will have come from the mines via the canal to the docks, while the timber being unloaded has been imported from the Baltic for pit props, ready to be taken back to the coal mines in Glamorganshire. I'm now heading north of Cardiff, where Claude filmed the valleys of Mountain Ash and Abercynon. This is the road Claude would have used. It has been abandoned since the 1970s, now overgrown and forgotten, rather hard to find. The new road is down below me. You can hear the traffic thundering along. I guess Claude would have driven here and parked his great Vauxhall Tourer about here, got his heavy camera equipment out, the tripod set up about here, and filmed the view across the valley. Another example of this, of the way Claude didn't like to venture too far from the car with his heavy equipment. I discussed Claude's films with Brian David, the curator of the Pontypridd Museum.
It's the landscape I remember my childhood, so I can recognise every structure in that view. And of course it's unique because there are individual photographs of that scene, but nobody else has taken a panoramic shot like that of a South Wales valley which was in its time economically of enormous importance. The collieries were in a row right down the centre of the valley, between them employing about 5,000 men at the time. For several decades, this was boomtown in a way. People didn't come here because they were walking into poverty. They came here because they were walking into comparative affluence. Wages in the mining towns were much higher than they were in agricultural areas. Large numbers of people came here from England, from the English rural counties. There were quite a few from Ireland. There's a Catholic church here. The Irish came after the famine.
Initially one almost feels things haven't changed, but really it's utterly different, isn't it now?
It is totally different. Even in my lifetime. The most obvious difference, superficially to be honest, is the sound of the place. The absence of certain sounds. The day was punctuated by blasts from the colliery hooter, starting at 5:30 in the morning.
Well, they get the chaps up, say, right.
5:30 to get you up, 6:30 to tell you that the men had started to go down, 7 o'clock to tell you that if you hadn't got to the pit by then, you could go home.
Lose a day's wages.
Lose a day's wages, and so on throughout the day.
Interesting, isn't it? But of course, Claude was filming here in early 1926. Again, by chance, he caught a fantastically interesting moment, because it's just a few months before the general strike, so...
He caught the area just at the turn. The peak of coal output and employment was during the First World War. From the end of the war onwards, South Wales began to lose its export market. The pressure was on from the coal owners for reductions in wages. Unemployment was becoming a serious issue.
Right.
Nearly every strike in the coal mining industry, contrary to popular mythology, has been against wage reductions. Not for wage increases. So people would have been very apprehensive. This was a community that had come into existence because of one industry, and the future of that industry was threatened.
All the collieries in a row on there, they've all gone utterly different. Claude didn't stop long in the industrial areas of South Wales and Cardiff. He got back on the road and drove out of Wales, through Monmouthshire, to a well-known beauty spot, Symonds Yap. Claude was a clever filmmaker, a bit of an illusionist. He liked to manipulate his material to create the strongest images possible, and quite right too. Also, he liked to add a sort of telling details. For example, in his view from here, he has two young ladies. They, of course, were to add a sort of bit of visual interest to improve the view. But they had a rather better view than I've got, because in front of me now is a wall built since their time. They'd have seen a lovely view from here right down into the valley towards the river. Claude's picture of Britain was aimed at both the domestic and the American market. His carefully selected picture postcard images, like this of Kern Bridge, shot from Goodrich, Margaret's Church at Welsh Bicknor, provide us with a documentary record of this country at the time. Claude moved on to Ross-on-Wye, where he caught the local cows cooling off. As he journeyed through Herefordshire, he came across this gypsy camp. We found Tom Boylan, the grandson of one of these families. Oh, no, this is a group of women and children by the cauldron, by the fire. So, so can you tell me, Tom, about the life the family lived, at this time in the mid-1920s?
Well, they lived in these caravans and they just travelled around the country.
They had no permanent home, always moving.
No, they were always moving, yes.
So fully nomadic.
But mostly it was in the Herefordshire, Shropshire area.
So they had a kind of route, an annual route.
They never went out of that area.
And they were picking hops in the season for hop picking.
Oh, yes.
And also otherwise, the rest of the year, what did the family do?
Well, my grandmother, besides, although she was a gypsy, used to sell rugs from the caravans.
Rugs?
Yeah.
Well, that she made or she'd bought?
No, she bought them from Axminster in Kidderminster.
I see. So she'd sell those around the towns she went to.
During the outer season, that's what she did. She sold the rugs to, went round the big houses in the country.
I must say, this is amazing.
Yeah, that's my grandmother with the brooch. She always wore black, and she always wore a hat. Whenever you see her, that's all she wore.
And she's wearing black, of course, with this great big brooch at her throat. So you've got it.
I've got it here.
What an amazing piece of work. And there it is, a big round brooch. And there she is wearing it in Claude's film. Who is this?
That's her daughter.
Her
Clara.
daughter, your aunt then?
Yeah. Uncle Dick, that was with his family. And there was another brother called Harry. He had his family there too.
Yeah.
They all met up picking, but the rest of the year they did their own travelling. They weren't all together all the time. It was just up picking time that they met on this particular up field, and they picked hops together as a big family. Every year they took the caravans, and the grandparents and that slept in the caravans. And they took these big, massive tents. The children used to sleep in the tents. But what we used to do, we used to get up 6 o'clock in the morning. We'd have a cooked breakfast. We'd never go around the upfield without a cooked breakfast.
Cooked on the sort of campfire in front of
Yes, they used to cook it up. Clara, that's the one I showed you with her nan. She did all the cooking. Then she used to fetch the lunch down with sandwiches, cheese, or whatever it was. We'd be in the upfields about 6 o'clock at night, 6:30.
At the weekend or in the evening, would you go down to the local pub for a drink?
No, they made their own entertainment. In fact, they had these gramophones with the big horns on. One of the 78s records. And they used to be playing those all evening and singing and dancing. We had a great time. Just died out now. It isn't like that anymore.
It's home where the heavens are brighter and there's a welcome on every smiling face. It's home where your cares are made lighter by loved ones you never can replace.
The Open Road is a romantic, sentimental portrait of rolling countryside and green fields. He was very taken with the local cattle. Herefords were a famous breed in Britain at the time, but they would go on to dominate the world beef market. The breed was originally exported to the United States in the mid-19th century. They also went to South America, New Zealand, Australia, and South Africa. Claude filmed these farm workers taking a well-earned break. The farm is actually Bounds Farm, a cider brewery since 1880. Weston's organic cider is still brewed on the premises and is exported all over the world. They stopped breeding Herefords in the 1970s, but Claude managed to film one of their prize-winning bulls. Conquest weighed in at 2 tons and had just come back from being shown at the Three Counties Agricultural Show just outside Hereford. I'm here to meet Mary England, who has lived in the local village of Much Markle for most of her life.
Now that looks very much like old Jack Trigg, who used to live up on the hill here. never hardly sober.
I know, I understand. Well, he's surrounded by temptation, isn't he? but absolutely amazing. How do you recognise him? I mean,
Well, I mean, I was born here, and then these people were around and about then, and I was 6 years old. I would remember them quite clearly.
Well, you know, they're presumably their children, I suppose. You just simply pass them every day in part of village life. What sort of was he?
I remember on one occasion we came home on a Saturday evening, and we found him hanging in the brook bottom of the hill here. So the bus driver stopped, picked him up, and took him home.
That's what life was like then. Yes. He passed out with cider.
Too much cider, you see, and he got so far in the fresh air, and it hit him.
Cider was a part of ordinary life. I mean, it was a necessary drink.
Yes.
But it gave you energy for work, I suppose. He seemed to have embellished himself with a buttonhole, which is rather charming.
But of course, a lot of the old folks did. You know, they picked them as they came through their garden.
Which is an old tradition. How very nice. Now, this chap, quite different. It's a bowler hat and got a tie on.
Yes.
So, do you know who that might be?
Well, I think that is Harry Cox, who used to live up at the Point. Now, on a Saturday, a horse and wagon, and they used to collect orders from the old pike. People would be there. They'd go into town.
Chaps, do you recognise these fellows?
Oh yes, that's John Evans.
John,
Yes,
and again,
yes,
he's got a
that's how
flower.
you'd recognise John with his pipe. His son was exactly the same. Always had a pipe in his mouth.
Oh look, cheese and onions.
That's right.
Says Claude
Yes,
suddenly. Oh,
he's peeling his onion there.
there's cheese, onion, and better.
Yeah.
It's a proper ploughman's lunch, basically. This is where it all comes from, wrapped in a little handkerchief. And that was the standard.
Yes, they all had their own gardens and they all grew their own onions.
And does it bring back memories of village life 80 years ago?
Yes. Everybody turned round and helped their neighbour. If you were short of vegetables in the garden, you did a swap. If you'd got plenty of potatoes, you passed them to your neighbour and they gave you a cabbage in exchange, you know, and things like that.
I suppose the village would have had shops and little industry.
We had two shops, yes.
And a blacksmith, presumably a wheelwright.
Yes, we had a blacksmith and a wheelwright, yes.
Interesting, and now, of course, all that's gone, isn't it?
Still had the 3 pubs.
And still got 3 pubs. What is life like for you now in the village?
Oh, I don't know half the people. No, I don't know half the people. Of course, you see, they're in motor cars, you know, driving backwards and forwards, so you don't know them at all.
So significant that, because you know these people, you recognise them, because you would be walking by them every day.
Yes.
Simple little thing, but what a difference, yes. You just simply do get to know people.
Yes.
It's ironic that the very thing that Claude celebrates in the open road, the motor car, is what has changed the country so completely. There were only 1,200 dedicated petrol stations at this time, but fuel was sold in other outlets like hardware shops, hotels and pubs in 2-gallon cans. Because Claude's journey took him to some remote areas, he always carried a spare can of petrol with him. The first petrol stations were only built in 1919, so they were a relatively new phenomenon. The curbside pumps were called ugly and eyesore, unlike, of course, the heavily branded ones we know today. Originally, petrol stations were independently owned, so they stocked a wide variety of petrol, lots of different brands. And they had to, really, because certain cars preferred to run on certain types of petrol. Claude's assistant, who's smoking, by the way, could have chosen Shell, but it seems the Vauxhall preferred BP. Incredible, this car can drink almost anything now. Leaded petrol originally, but now lead is okay as well. In 1925, there were 600,000 cars in the United Kingdom. Today, there are 25 million. Claude's tour really was quite quite an adventure for those days. There weren't many cars on the roads, and those cars that were around tended to break down rather often. It wasn't unusual to fail on a hill, rather frightening, so good brakes were absolutely essential. And the roads themselves were very rough, so punctures were common. And to sort of top it all, until 1935, there was no speed limit. Claude continued his journey from Herefordshire through to Shropshire, stopping in Ludlow to film the castle as well as a local blacksmith, capturing the marvel of atmospheric colour in the Dingle Gardens in Shrewsbury. Then on to Market Drayton's High Street to see the milk being delivered. And a sunset at Long Mynd. From the rural idyls of the border country, he stopped briefly at the Trent Valley and the bleak industrial vista of Stoke-on-Trent. Claude took the opportunity to show off his all-new colour process at Wedgwood's famous Etruria pottery. He rarely filmed interiors as there wasn't enough light to expose the film properly. But in the Wedgwood factory's enamelling department, his walls of windows gave him ample opportunity and all the light he needed. In the 1920s, there were 735 people employed at Wedgwood. There are now over 2,000, and it's one of the few industrial-scale potteries in Britain. Just along the canal, Claude filmed a boating family who are moving goods along the canals to make a living. The toddler is filthy, covered in coal dust from crawling on the cargo. The Public Health Authority tried to restrict the number of children allowed to live on each boat to 3, but larger families simply used 2 boats or hid any extras on the tow path when the inspectors turned up. Whole families continued to live and work together on boats and barges until the late 1960s. Claude drove north to an entirely different location, Liverpool's docks. This is the Canada Branch Dock No. 1, filmed from the RMS Adriatic, which was owned by the White Star Line, the same company that built the Titanic. The RMS Adriatic was a Royal Mail ship. There was a fledgling airmail service, but 90% of post was still going by sea. The Royal Mail had contracts with travel companies, so along with the post, it took the Adriatic 2 weeks to transport her 2,800 passengers to New York. The captain was Frank E. Beadnell. His predecessor was E.J. Smith, who in 1912 was promoted to captain the Titanic.
It's not an ordinary gal that I love, 'cause she was sent to me from heaven above.
Next stop, Lancashire, via Southport.
My extraordinary gal. She's got a lot of something I crave in her dreamy eyes. I'll tell the world I'm only her slave, how I idolize her personality.
Claude stopped on his way to Blackpool in an unnamed Lancashire village. We put a picture in the Lancashire Evening Post to discover its location, and Albert Clayton, a local historian, contacted us to help.
I was flabbergasted. I thought, what's our house doing in the Lancashire Evening Post? I was born there, yes, in 1938. Then we got the washing on the hedge, which was quite common. My mother used to do that, and there was an advantage to this because the wind blew through the hedge from underneath, and of course it blew on top as well. And in addition to that, the clothes didn't blow away.
So when Claude said this is a common sight in Lancashire, it's right. I mean, this
yeah.
was a common practice. Didn't necessarily mean that people here couldn't afford a clothesline. This was actually a sensible kind of
It was practical,
procedure.
It was just a practical thing.
What do you reckon of these children? Can you say anything about them?
Well, I don't recognise them. They could have been children who lived across the road or next door or wherever.
There they are, rocking to and fro. Oh, with the dog, how lovely.
Mm.
Now, but here, Claude's got another shot, and 4 other children appear standing in front of the same hedge, I think, in the same sort of little cobbled path. Do you know who these might be, these children?
Well, they are the Cross children who lived at the house where I lived. There were 7 of them.
7 children?
7 children, yeah. And their father, Thomas, he died in February 1919.
So this time there was 8 human beings living in that rather
that
small
house, yes.
My goodness
Yeah.
me.
The one on the left is Jim.
This chap here,
yeah,
yes.
Yeah. And then there's a child there with blonde hair. I don't know who that is. Could be some relation.
Yeah.
Then there's Grace.
The girl here,
Yeah.
yes.
And then Dick, or Richard, on the right-hand side with a cat. There's another one called Ewart.
Another brother, right.
Another brother called Ewart.
They're all wearing clogs, in
Yeah,
fact, aren't
we used to wear clogs because across the road was a clogger's shop. A chap by the name of George Hill had it, and he actually told me when I was about 15 all about these Cross children. And the mother, she died age 40 in 1927.
So just a couple of years after this was shot.
He knew the family, yeah. He said it was a very, very sad time, and everybody was really. It affected everybody in the area.
Well,
Tragic, it really was.
And are any of them alive, do you think?
Yeah, I think Grace is alive, but I've no idea if the others are alive. I don't think they are. I think all the others will be dead.
That's me. That one.
How many were you?
7 children, and just mother. Dad died just before I was born.
Right.
He couldn't face looking at me before I came.
You look the same almost now. Your face is the same. That's you, I know it is, there.
That's it, and that's my brother Dick.
Dick?
He was my favourite of the lot. Oh, and he was a good lad to mother. We've all got our clogs on.
You're all wearing
Look at
clogs?
his socks. Aren't I a little beauty?
Yes.
Ooh.
You've got the same expression too. A bit mischievous. Here's a little boy, look. We don't recognise him, but he's eating his jam as well, isn't he?
He's having his jam butty.
Jam butty. And you're holding his hand. So you must have known
so
him
I
quite
am.
well.
No, I hadn't noticed that.
So that's Dick again with
This
the cat.
is Dick. We're very fond of animals.
So what's it like now for you to see yourself and your brother as you were 80 years ago in moving colour pictures? It must be very strange for you now to see. What do you feel? Does it take you
But
back?
I only remember a black cat, isn't that funny? But we must have had a ginger. Yeah.
What happened when your mother died? I mean, how did she die?
Same as Dad, pneumonia.
Pneumonia?
Well, she hadn't any good food in front of her, but, you know, to help her. So when she was ill, it ended up like Dad. She was wonderful.
And how long was it before you were separated from your brothers? I mean, was it
Well,
quick?
immediately Mother died. There was nobody wanted as much.
You left the house where you'd been
Granny
born.
and Grandad never took us in. Who you'd have thought might have done if only one of us. But no, I went to this great aunt's because I'd come in useful for Auntie, being a girl, when she was getting older. So that's what...
Dear Grace, and this is from, Jim and you, this is your brothers. And here it says, Harris Orphanage,
Yeah.
Preston.
That's right.
It says, hoping you are keeping well and fine. Also wishing you a Merry Christmas and a bright New Year.
Yeah.
Christmas will soon be here, so I hope you will have a jolly time. We both have friends who come to see us on visiting days. Golly. I'm sorry that you cannot come and see us.
Oh, Auntie would never let me go.
Why would your auntie not let you visit your brothers in the orphanage?
She didn't understand, did she? She'd never had children of her own. So I suppose that had something to do with it.
Wishing you a right good Christmas
Yeah.
and a bright and happy New Year. We remain your loving brothers, Jim and that Stuart, is it?
Stuart, yeah.
Did you receive other letters from them after this?
I don't expect so.
Because
well, Auntie never let me answer.
She didn't let you answer. She didn't want you writing to your brothers. Why?
I don't know what it was. It was just her way.
This is very sad. But thank you very much for letting me see that. This has been
I've always kept that one. I don't know
well,
why.
the fact you've always kept it says
just
a lot, doesn't
something
it?
to hold on to, isn't it?
Yes. Claude motored up the coast road towards the bright lights and pleasures of Blackpool. He arrived to film the North Pier and the world-famous illuminations. The lights had only just been switched back on after staying dark for the whole of the First World War. Claude's colour process captured the lights of the scenic railway on the pleasure beach, as well as the casino by moonlight. Blackpool had been a major holiday resort since 1900. By the mid-1920s, it was receiving around 7 million visitors a year and had a promenade stretching 7 miles. The promenade, with its lovely walks and rides, had cost about £1.5 million to create, a lot of money in the 1920s. And all this provided Claude with wonderful opportunities to show his colour process to great advantage. The colourful rides, the visitors, and of course, the Cupid dolls. Cupid dolls were a big thing in the 1920s. They were the Barbie of its generation. The Lawton Doll Company in Blackpool was supposedly producing up to 3,000 of them a day. Originally imported from Germany and Japan, Lawtons undercut the price of the foreign producers and called them perfection itself. George Valentine Tonner, one of the owners of the Cupid factory, also ran a number of other concessions at the pleasure beach. Originally from Ireland, he emigrated to America, fought in the First World War, travelled to Australia, and in 1920 came back to Blackpool to invest £10,000 in a number of attractions. He also introduced a dodgem ride to Blackpool, the first in Britain. Claude travelled north to the Lake District, the original literary tourist destination. Tourism in the lakes began in the late 18th century when the first guidebooks were published. Authors like William Wordsworth and Samuel Taylor Coleridge advertised the natural beauty of the area to the nation. Claude's colour process beautifully captures Coniston water and Derwent water in the autumn. He even manages to find 2 ladies, one in a red coat and the other in bluey green, to enhance his film. The films focus on new outdoor pursuits which were becoming popular in the 1920s, like climbing and fell walking. One series of films focuses on this group of climbers, and in particular on the rather bohemian-looking guide. I've come to see Audrey Solkeld, a climbing historian, to see if she could help me identify him.
So just sing out if you begin to recognise anything, anyone, or particular locations, I suppose. So 3 people walking, looking around.
And this is the guy who is the most obvious climber. And
he's obviously leading them. He's a guide, so what do you reckon?
Somebody said, oh, could it be Bentley Beath? Could it be the Continental Guide that was guiding at the time? So then I suddenly remembered the name Jerry Wright.
Yeah. Which is Jerry, and why do you think it is him?
It's difficult in as much as these 2 guys are very similar to look at, but the one that we think is Jerry, the one who's obviously showing them around, has a very lean face, pronounced cheekbones. He didn't publish very many photographs of himself, but there is one of him climbing, which bears a striking resemblance
very
to
much
our man.
Indeed, the same hat almost. So he would have been quite famous, certainly locally, Jerry Wright in the mid-20s.
Yes, I mean, it may be even infamous, because I don't...
Infamous?
I think the idea of setting up as a commercial guide did offend some of the local climbers.
Oh, climbing wasn't a commercial activity, basically. It was something for
he was offering to guide tourists into the hills, and I think he would have been interested in the whole process and in the filmmaking idea, and yes, it would have suited them both.
So, OK, we've got the 3 people around a fire. And what's happening now? They're cooking... Oh, my God, there are.
Fish.
Fish.
Fish from ostensibly from the lake.
And but now, look, this chap has got sort of scarf tied round his head.
It's got a very flamboyant scarf.
And there we are. That's a very good close-up of him. So what about the others, then? I mean, any idea who these might be? There's a young lady, rather fashionable, cut to her hair.
Well,
and she's having a drink of Mountain Stream.
I feel that if one went long enough, one would find out, but I haven't found out.
Well, she may
yet.
have been a friend of Claude's. I mean, some people even thought it's Chrissy, his wife. No one knows, of course. Then, of course, now they're all having a cigarette.
Yes.
Of course, it seems odd to us now. You know, cigarettes not healthy, climbing is healthy. Did the people, would it have been odd at that time?
It wouldn't have been odd at all. Nobody at that time knew that cigarette smoking was unhealthy. Most people did it.
So what else? There's his hobnail boots he's wearing. That's not so easy to climb, is it? Rocky, slippery stones with hobnails. Is that right?
in those days, there were all sorts of nailing patterns. People devised what they thought would be the best way to get a good grip and not to slip. And it was when the rubber boots came in that people called them the lethal footwear, and you can only use them in dry weather. And British climbers were very cautious and still put the nails around the outside.
Very British. And we now come up with the climb. Here we go, they're now roped together, so implying this is sort of a serious bit of climbing.
This is Jerry, our leader, and he's belaying the next person out. They're making a bit of a tangle at the rope. He was committed socialist. He didn't think that who a person was or where they were brought up should make any difference to them. If they wanted to climb, they should have the opportunity. He also thought that mountaineers had a bond wherever they were.
Oh, there they are, admiring the view. This is a lovely shot, isn't it?
Yes.
There's something rather baffling about all of this. None of it quite fits with Claude's usual style of filming. Typically, he'd stop his great Vauxhall by the roadside, get out his heavy camera equipment and shoot away. But here, he's properly sort of climbed up this mountaintop. How on earth did he bring his equipment up here? The heavy camera, a heavy tripod. rather amazing. I suppose he made the most of Jerry and used Jerry's, maybe student climbers to haul the stuff up. But I tell you what, it's a proper climb. When Claude was filming, of course, most of the Lake District was privately owned. So climbers and guys like Jerry would have to have got permission to climb or walk on the land. A few years after the film was made, conflict between ramblers and landowners led to the mass trespassing movement. In the late 1940s, after lobbying from pressure groups for public access, the post-war Labour government created the National Parks of England and Wales. The Lake District became one of the first of these in Britain in 1951. In 2006, nearly 60% of the land in the Lake District is still in private ownership. So having completed the first two-thirds of Claude's road trip from Land's End to John O'Groats, what do his films reveal? Claude captured, by chance, Britain at a point of fundamental change. His colour films offer us a wonderful window into a now distant country, our past. In the final programme, we cross the border into Scotland. We find out what happened to Claude and his colour process. And we reach the end of a magical journey. If you'd like to see more of Claude's open road films, then go to bbc.co.uk/history, where you can watch all the archive on broadband.